The next big dark occultist that paved the way for Nazism and its rise to power was Jorg Lonz von Liebenfels. And again, I'm not even going to ask for a raising of hands. How many people know about any of these people? It's almost certain most people have never heard of these people. Jorg Lonz von Liebenfels was an Austrian occultist, a political theorist, and a pioneer of the occult ideologies of Ariosophy and theozoology. Again, most people have probably never heard of those ideologies. He was a former monk of the Catholic Cistercian order and the founder of the magazine Ostara, in which he published anti-Semitic and Völkisch theories. On Christmas of the year 1900, von Liebenfels founded the occult secret society called Ordo Novi Templi, which means the Order of the New Templars. So this is about the ancient knight society of the Templar Knights, but Liebenfels felt that he was bringing about a resurrection of the Templars, and thus he called it the New Templar Society. An occult order that was dedicated to bringing fascist extremists together and mobilizing them in favor of National Socialism in Germany. In 1905, Liebenfels published a book called Theozoology, in which he advocated sterilization and forced labor of the lower races and glorified the Aryan race as Gottmenschen, or godmen. Through his ideology or religion called theozoology, Liebenfels distorted occult, spiritual, and even biblical teachings to justify his esoteric racial ideology. He taught that the biblical Eve had procreated with demons to give birth to what he described as lower races. In 1905, Liebenfels founded the magazine Ostara, a magazine through which he promoted Ariosophy and theozoology. Liebenfels claimed that Ostara had over 100,000 subscribers, including Adolf Hitler himself. Liebenfels claimed that he was visited by Hitler in 1909 and supplied Hitler with 2 missing copies of Ostara that Hitler did not have in his collection. In 1915, Liebenfels began using the term Ariosophy to describe his esoteric doctrines, again, distorting theosophy and anthroposophy. Theosophy meaning the divine wisdom, anthroposophy meaning human wisdom. Now, this is the wisdom of the Aryans, okay? The word Ariosophy translates to wisdom of the Aryans. Ariosophy is generally used to describe the Aryan esoteric theories, which constituted a subset of the Völkisch movement. While both Liebenfels and Guido von List consider themselves Ariosophists, List called his esoteric doctrine Armanism, while Liebenfels used the terms theozoology and Aryo-Christianity, since he was formerly a Christian monk prior to World War I. Liebenfels' occult secret society, which he established on Christmas 1900, was called Ordo Novi Templi, the Order of the New Templars. Ordo Novi Templi used esotericism to justify violence, such as the castration of those they deemed racially inferior, to establish a fascist state. It was modeled, Ordo Novi Templi was modeled after the Catholic military order of the Knights Templar, and similar in its hierarchical structure to the order of Cistercians, of which Liebenfels himself had been a former member. That was one of its, they were one of the earliest groups to use the swastika, by the way, along with the Reichshammerbund. Okay, so that's one of their insignias there. Influenced by Liebenfels' Ariosophy, the Austrian industrialist Johann Waltari Wolfel founded an occult society called Lumen Club. Some of these organizations are so secretive, they had no insignias or logos, okay? So again, Wolfel and Lumen Club, you're not going to find their insignias. They were just completely underground secretive orders. He founded Lumen Club in Vienna, Austria on November 11th, 1932. Lumen Club overlapped in membership with Ordo Novi Templi. Its ideological sympathy toward Nazism was beyond question, and it acted as a growth center for the Nazi Party, again in the 1930s, which had already been previously banned in the country of Austria. Lumen Club and Ordo Novi Templi were both later suppressed by the Gestapo under the Nazi regime, a fate which they shared with many other esoteric groups. Now here I want to pause and explain something. The dark occult has a tradition of using people as tools to further their agendas. And when the people who they've already used as tools are finished fulfilling their job, they take them and they throw them under the bus. They throw them out like a rusty or dull tool when it's done being used for whatever purpose it's being used for. A gentleman whose work you should all become familiar with, if you're not already, is Jay Parker, a friend of mine, who was also in the world of the dark occult and much higher in it than myself because he was born into it. Okay, I just got a peek behind the curtain. He lived it most of his childhood. Okay, his whole childhood, really. And he will tell you all the dark occultists do at the highest levels is they'll take their rank and file members, they'll use them for whatever they can get out of them, and then they'll use them as scapegoats and throw them under the bus. And you're going to see that over and over and over again today as we go through this, okay? So keep that in mind. After Hitler's rise to prominence in the 1920s, Liebenfels tried to be recognized as one of his ideological precursors, and he absolutely was. It is known historically that Hitler read Ostara and collected it, okay? So he definitely took ideas from Liebenfels and von List. Okay, in the preface of issue number 1 of the 3rd series of Ostara magazine, Liebenfels wrote, "One shall remember that the swastika and fascist movements are basically offsprings of Ostara as a movement and as a propaganda tool." After Austria was annexed by Germany in 1938, Liebenfels hoped for Hitler's patronage, but Hitler banned him from publishing his writings, and copies of Ostara were then removed from circulation. After the war, Liebenfels accused Hitler of having not only stolen but corrupted his ideas, and also he accused him of being, quote, inferior racial stock, because Liebenfels probably learned that Hitler had Jewish blood and was of Jewish descent, namely from the House of Rothschild. Hitler never mentioned Liebenfels in any recorded conversation, speech, or document, even though he was clearly one of his ideological precursors. The next occultist to look into is